What's up, Progressive Overload family? Welcome back to the podcast. So excited to have you today. We're in for a special treat today. I interviewed Mr. David Shotwell, who is a physical therapist from the Philippines, and he's an awesome dude to get to know. And I had a really good time interviewing him today. We are right now. I'm coming to you from my new home gym studio, and I just wanted to preface this first episode with Mr. David that we did have some audio issues capturing the audio. And we didn't know it until after we recorded, but it was good enough to release. And so if you hear a massive difference in the audio quality with this episode versus my last one, that's why. I'm not even going to get into the technical issues that we did. But anyways, it's still audible, and you can still hear it and understand it. But come back next week, and you'll see the difference of the audio quality. All right, well, let's get to the show. Thank you for stopping by. Goodbye. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Progressive Overload podcast. Have you ever thought about strengthening multiple areas of your life at the same time? Then you've come to the right place. Our goal is to help you identify ways that you might need a progressive overload to break through those plateaus and keep you growing. What's up, Progressive Overload podcast? Welcome back to the show. We're so glad to have you tune in today, and so excited to bring another awesome guest into the studio today. He's actually invited us into his kitchen right now, and we're just gracing ourselves on his table, whatever that means.
That we are.
Well, Mr. David Shotwell, we are so glad to have you today. How are you today?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Glad to be here.
Walker, thank you for bringing on another amazing guest.
Oh, you betcha, bro.
I'm going to start having to get you a finder's fee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah. So Mr. David is a physical therapist, currently working in the home health field, but we're going to talk a little bit about physical therapy today. It's a big passion of mine. I've worked in fitness centers that are always a part of a physical therapy product for forever now, and I think it's possibly an answer for a lot of issues out there in the healthcare world. So we're going to dive into that, and then also just kind of dive into David's testimony and how he came to know Jesus. And so let's just dive in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, David, introduce yourself to our audience. You are a big fitness fan, I hear. You are the CrossFit kind of guy, and I won't hold that against you.
He's also a Spartan person.
And a Spartan race.
This weekend.
So let's just tell us a little bit about yourself. Just go for it.
It all began when I was born. Not that far back. But
You're just going out there now.
I actually was pretty sickly growing up as a kid. I didn't really pursue any athletic endeavors. It wasn't really until I went into my line of work that I started seeing, the effects of how people would get sick because of their lifestyle. Oh. And there was a disconnect in my head for quite a while where I was studying about it, but I wasn't really applying it in my life at the time. There was a time I was 240 pounds.
Are you serious?
I was, yeah. And
just so y'all know, I'm trying to reach 240 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Well, that might be 240 pounds of muscle, but mine was definitely more of the adipose tissue kind.
I get it.
Yeah, and I think the thing that kind of stuck with me was when I was visiting with a patient, like I was telling them what they needed to do, and then I was like, I probably should start applying some of what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
And so when I moved to the U.S., we have a common friend who was pretty passionate about it. And I think having someone to kind of work out with really helped kickstart the journey for me.
That's awesome, man. So you were 240 at kind of your heaviest. Was this before you moved to America?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would say actually probably for the first 6 months that I was here.
Gotcha. See, most people gain their weight when they come to America, right?
That's, yeah.
I could see that because, it's seesawed a couple of times, and I think it's whenever I let life carry like with my diet, with my activity choices. So I could see that being the case.
I get it. So what was life like growing up in the Philippines?
There are a lot of things I think that are taken for granted both ways.
Really?
There were things back home where you would consider them luxuries here.
Really? Yeah.
And then conversely, there are a lot of things here that are so much more efficient. It's one of those things where you don't really know what the place is like until you've been there. And I would say the same holds true for the U.S. You kind of have these preconceived notions, and until you live here, don't really know what to expect.
So do you consider yourself America your home now? Or you plan on staying here the rest of your life?
I would say for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. What's kind of a major religion over there?
So predominantly Catholic, and
Okay.
I was born and raised in a Christian household, so being born again Christian was more of a minority there.
Yeah. Did you go to like a Catholic school?
I went to a Christian school for my grade school, a Catholic school for high school and college.
Yeah, cool.
So aren't your parents Catholic, or they?
They were
they're more-
born and raised, in a Catholic household, but they both became Christian. If I'm not mistaken, probably about 15 years before I was born. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's cool. I want to dive into that a little bit more later on, but let's talk about some physical therapy stuff. At what point did you know you wanted to become a physical therapist?
I didn't. Actually, I kind of see it now as God's hand on my life, because I always told myself I wanted to be a doctor, and that was just something that I thought would be easy, attainable without that much effort.
Yeah.
And I was just fortunate enough that I went into physical therapy as a pre-med course, and I wound up really liking it the more I worked in it.
Cool.
So
Cool.
all panned out great, and I didn't see it at the time, but God knew what He was doing.
Did you do that therapy school in the Philippines?
I did, yeah.
So when you come to the States, you just have to kind of take the relicensure test kind of thing? Or how
Yes,
does that work?
so you have to send in your course work, and they have to see whether the units are equivalent to the degree here.
Right.
Then you have to take the licensure exam, and then you have to wait for your visa.
Okay.
Well, didn't you get some work experience in the Philippines before coming over here?
I
Or
did.
you already
I was
a
working for about 2
licensed
years.
doctor? Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So working there for a little bit and now here, what are some major differences in the practice do you see, if any?
Payer sources, over there, insurance isn't the primary driving thing.
Is it? Okay.
So I would say, in terms of motivation, the hospital I worked at had inpatient and outpatient. And so most of the time, if they showed up for outpatient therapy, they were really pretty committed.
Yeah.
Them or their family member who hauled their butts up there.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So they actually care about the health of patients instead of making money, you think?
There's always the money bottom line for anything, but I would say that it wasn't the primary driving factor.
That's good.
What was the typical population of people that you mostly worked with, or was it just hit or miss?
So I worked at the tertiary hospital. Most of my cases were following a stroke or a CVA. I did deal with multiple neurological cases, so I had patients with multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, but majority of the ones that we saw who were at the hospital were for CVAs. They had across the hall from us like a specialized cardiac rehab program, which is a whole different ballgame. And then we did see outpatient musculoskeletal cases, so it was a pretty good mix, I think.
Yeah, wow.
Age range also kind of varied. We had some who were like, again, 60, 70, 80, but we had people who were like working age.
Yeah. What would you say the number one goal of every physical therapist is?
Wow.
They always say like optimizing movement and function.
Yeah.
I would say for me, really, if I can just help the patient's life get better.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think my biggest problem with physical therapy, and this is totally driven by insurance, is, so let me ask you a question. What is the, and I know the answer, but I'm asking you, what is the process of gaining strength in the development phase? So like
Like the progressive overload.
Yeah, I mean, literally, yeah. So
Yeah.
the thing is, we know that the first 4 to 6 weeks of a exercise program, your strength gains are neurological. It's synchronization of motor units. But usually, especially outpatient therapy, they're done with their therapy in 4 to 6 to 8 weeks most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my biggest problem is they help them gain, function most of the time, but minimum function, and then they stop their program and they don't do their at-home exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come right back, and they're repeat offenders over and over.
Repeat offenders.
Yeah,
that sounds so bad.
It does, but
go ahead.
I think the thing that's tough is I know that there are consistently changes being made to how Medicare is structuring it.
Yeah.
Also with third-party payers like the private insurance companies.
Yeah.
I would say for me, the thing that even in the professional scope that they're trying to push is not underdosing your exercise prescription, because sometimes the thing that's tough is you've got someone who's medically frail and you don't want to overexert them, but at the same time, how much of the carryover is really being insured once they're done seeing y'all? Because I can kind of see it's all like a big balancing act, but the tough thing is if they don't carry on with any program past a certain point, then it's that rinse repeat cycle that you were talking about.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, you struck a chord there, because I think I've worked in the physical therapy fitness field for so long now, and so many physical therapists underdose their patients. Like just for example, like doing a leg press, like at our gym. I have some 80-year-old, 90-year-old people doing at least 80 to 100 pounds on a leg press.
Yeah.
But every single time I see somebody doing it with physical therapy, they're just doing 10 pounds, 5 pounds, maybe 20 pounds. And I've never seen anybody go up higher than that almost. And it's always driven me crazy because, I don't know.
Is that just a caution approach, or?
Yeah, it's just they're so timid so many times, and you probably know if you've ever worked with trainers or strength coaches or anything like that. There's always kind of a headbutting between therapists and trainers a little bit. So that a lot of times, because I don't know, but luckily I work with pretty good therapists, and they understand how true progressive overload works. But I think they underdose them a lot of the times.
What does Tyson think?
Probably since Tyson takes his strength and conditioning so serious with himself and his fighters, I feel like he understands that a lot more than most. And just like you were saying a while ago, you understood that you were preaching these things but not living them out. So I think it's so important for a physical therapist, especially when you're giving advice to your patients all day, every day. They think you're king, and they're going to listen to whatever you tell them to do. And so, maybe not.
Yeah, because I would say with the population that physical therapists are kind of used to seeing, most of the time it's because you're not just prescribing exercise per se. Sometimes it's hard to get them to buy in to changing their lifestyle. Because I would say sometimes there are patients who help you out as a therapist. I keep thinking of one lady that I saw who had a whole gamut of problems, especially with regards to just even getting out of bed. Like, sometimes you see people that standing up out of a chair is such a chore for them.
Right.
And for her, there was no way that insurance was going to authorize us to see her for as long as it would take for her to turn her life around completely. But it was kind of refreshing because she would visit us. I think sometimes it's hard discussing certain areas, like if their primary factor for having a difficulty with all of those mobility issues is they're overweight, and that's what's the big limiting factor is. Sometimes when you have severe osteoarthritis, physical therapy exercises can help, but they're not the solution. Like they really need to work on that first before there's going to be any appreciable progress.
Right.
And I think sometimes the thing that's hard is it's the communication between the patient, their providers, their trainers, their doctors, and it's hard getting everybody on the same page to have a really holistic approach.
Exactly, right.
And so I would say, like, during the I took a transitional doctorate here for my schooling, and that is one of the things that they were pushing, because I know that there are times that I underdosed with exercise, but it's also getting them to buy into actually doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say with again, that back and forth sometimes is it's kind of getting everybody on the same page that really would change it. For that lady, she kind of took a little bit of the advice I gave her and she ran with it. I mean,
That's great.
Cool.
I can't claim responsibility for anything that she did after she discharged from us, but she, I think, saw the changes that was happening when she started putting those in, and it was neat. She like came back first time she visited. She was in a motorized scooter. Next time she was in a 4-wheeled walker.
Yeah.
And then the next time it was a cane. Then
Wow.
I've run into her in town without any assisted device.
cool.
She's like back to doing.
What a praise.
Yeah, so I would say for her, it was because she bought in and she ran with it.
Yeah.
That's the best way I'd put it.
Yeah.
Physical therapy within the medical continuum, physical therapy is one of the best gateways to getting people into fitness. Because one, do what?
I agree.
Oh yeah, with physical therapy, if they can have a relationship, okay. Here's how it should work in the perfect world. A physician has a great relationship with a physical therapist, who has a great relationship with a strength coach or a personal trainer, and this person can just be passed down the continuum from clinic to physical therapy to lifestyle fitness, where it's we saw a physician for an acute problem or a chronic pain problem, whatever, and then the physical therapist comes and they see, wow, this exercise I'm doing not only helps my back pain that I came to see the doctor for, I have so much more energy throughout the day, my libido's gone up, my whatever, all these different things that fitness helps with, and they're like, man, I want to do this for forever. And then that's when they come see us, you and me, Walker. They're like, all right, so I saw the physical therapist for my low back pain. Can you help me address the rest of my body now? And that's how I've made a living the last 5 or 6 years.
Kind of like one big team.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to work.
You're never gonna get my client, David.
Exactly.
Neither are you, Joe.
Exactly. And a lot of physicians are like that. They want to be the God. They want to be the ones that answer all of the problems. They want to be the one that you come to for help.
The God card.
I will say, for me, I kind of tell my patients, especially on discharge, that I really would rather just see them out about town doing fun activities.
Yeah.
I say I don't mind seeing you because most of them are lovely people to work with, but I said I would much rather see you out enjoying the things that you do versus you having another fall, another issue. And I think the thing that's tough is, again, getting people to have that switch in mindset, because you definitely do not want to just have people cycling through that, getting sick, and then relapsing. And I would say, like with most of the physicians, I think the thing that's difficult, again, is the contact time and what really is being discussed during their visits. I know it varies greatly from doctor to doctor.
It does,
For me, I do like my line of work now because I get to spend quite a bit of time with them in their home. There's less of that filter because it used to be when I'd see them, it was because they came to our facility versus now you really kind of see what they're dealing with. Makes you a lot more empathetic because it's kind of easy to say, you know, do this, this, and this, but you don't know what really goes on behind the scenes for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. So we talked about getting them buy-in. That's a hard thing to do as a trainer or a physical therapist. So how do you assess someone's motivation, discipline, psyche, or whatever? How do you adjust how you approach your patient based on where they are mentally?
It kind of depends because, like, you again have these moments where you encounter them. Some of them will promise that they're doing everything that you're telling them to do, but the results kind of say otherwise. So you always just kind of have to find that balance with motivating the patient, making it as fun and enjoyable instead of, and also kind of sometimes there's nothing quite like the truth. I find that sometimes when you tell people something but they see your heart behind it, instead of you just barking orders at them, if you can kind of give them a little bit of motivation or sugarcoat it in some ways.
It's funny you mentioned barking orders. At the gym today, there was with my trainers and a new trainer. With my clients and a new trainer, we were talking about like a drill sergeant, and if that motivates you or shut you down, and it was just funny. You were
some clients
ironic.
Some clients want you to be that way, and they get enjoyment from getting yelled at and pushed.
That is not me.
Not me.
No.
I tell my evals, like, if that's what you're searching for, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
So how has since you got into fitness, since you got into actually taking your health seriously, practicing what you preach, how has that changed the way that you treat your patients?
It kind of varies. Before it was easier for me to say something, but there was that disconnect that I talked about. And now for me, sometimes I'm discussing with them like, hey, you need to really keep on your exercises. And sometimes for them, it makes it easier for them to see, like, when I share that on my own, I was like, I know sometimes you fall off the wagon, but the best thing that you can do is just hop back on.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that you have to do it 100% of the time, but you have to find that happy, sustainable medium for what really works for you. But at the same time, I would say that there are people, it's hard when they don't have support systems. I find that for me, my internal motivation isn't as good as it ought to be, so it always helps when I find people that I can be accountable with.
Absolutely.
And I would say, like, for my patients, sometimes I encourage them with their family members. Sometimes it's also changing how they help, because in their mind sometimes I don't know if it's guilt trip it or but sometimes they think that they're helping, but the way that they're communicating is what shuts the patient down in the first place. So
totally get that.
There are a lot of different factors. You always kind of have to read the room, I say. That's how I do it.
I think you can, in the fitness world especially, and it probably translates to physical therapy too, but you can always spot a new trainer when their main focus is just to kick that person's butt. They want their client, a new trainer will want their client leaving like just dragging and dead and sweaty.
Drenched in sweat.
I did my job. I got them a good workout. A good seasoned trainer will want their client feeling better than when they walked in, not feeling dragged and worse and less energized. So
I like how you express a seasoned trainer or a seasoned gym goer.
Yeah, right.
Workout regimen. I don't know, but it's like a seasoned person. It's like that means they're in the gym all seasons, or
they're there for a purpose.
Yeah, I don't know where that term comes from, honestly. It's been seasoned.
In your last episode, you were talking about. I was like, man, that's such a good one.
I'm gonna go with your grandmother's cast iron.
That's what I was going in my head. I was thinking cast iron in my head. You put it through. It's been tried and tested and used, and it's been through it. That's what I kind of think about. I don't know.
Also, what David was talking about just getting back on the bandwagon versus just remaining on the struggle bus or the broken bus. Sorry, I use that word a lot. I think it's really funny.
It's okay.
It's kind of cool because you can almost take that into every area of life. Is just try, and it's just like, wow, that's so powerful. Then you get Yoda who's saying do or do not. There is no try, and you're like, oh, great. Watches it.
One of the greatest philosophers of our time. Maybe. Are you a Star Wars nerd like him?
And no, not this. Not
We
as much.
have discussed it. He really likes Avatar: Last Airbender. I really like Star Wars, aka Clone Wars and Rebels and all that stuff. It's the same director.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Oh,
Dave Filoni.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
I think he knew more about that than I did. Okay.
Oh man. So I want to talk about the moment where you grew up Catholic, and then you kind of converted to.
So my mom and dad.
He found truth.
My mom and dad were born and raised Catholic.
Yeah.
My mom, I think, when she was in college, started going to a more charismatic group, and that's kind of where they say you're like dipping your waters into being a Christian. Because I think there's a disconnect sometimes with what the Word says versus what tradition they call it tradition says.
Yeah.
And so I think it's hard because it's deeply ingrained in the culture as well. And so I would run into issues where I would be. So when I was in Christian school, it wasn't a problem. But when I started going to Catholic schools, there were some times where they'd call you out.
Really?
They'd basically call you a heretic or that you follow.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I mean,
It's not very encouraging.
it is not. But again, you are the minority, and I think the thing sometimes that's hard is having that exchange of ideas without it turning into name calling.
Right. Yeah.
I would say for my mom, she's a lot more passionate than I am, like way more. And I think it's because for her, it's such a big switch because she used to be Catholic and then she became Christian. And I think, for her, the way she put it was that, it's like the light came on.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, for me, I was raised in a Christian household, but it's not until you choose it for yourself. Like,
Right.
it has to be a personal thing.
Absolutely.
When I came here to the U.S., my parents weren't here to drag my butt to church anymore, so you kind of have to pick up and make it your own. Yeah.
What do we call that?
Brain freeze. What?
What do we call that whenever you make what you believe your own? Remember?
Oh my gosh, I really forgot.
Come on.
I'm
You gotta
thinking.
unpack your suitcase and pack it with
nuts.
everything. I was
It's
trying
not
to give you.
identity,
I was trying to
it's,
give you an alley-oot, man.
I know, I'm sorry.
Stop.
My brain's been. Wait.
What do you call that, Walker?
I really don't know. It's
So
bad.
oh, man.
What is it?
I just told you.
Is it packing your suitcase?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I call it something different.
Oh, I don't know. I bring that up all the time.
You do.
Whenever we're grown up to believe something, basically we believe most of the time whatever our parents believe, and they pack our suitcase for us. And then whenever we get out of the house and go live our own life, we unpack it and we keep what we think is truth, and we let go of things.
Self-discovery.
Self-discovery. Like,
You gotta pack your own suitcase at that point.
exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's pretty good.
Sorry, bro. I was at the gym today. My brain's been so fuzzy. It's just one of those days.
It's okay, man. No problem. I get it.
Might need some good hydration.
I did think about this. I was like, I think I need more water. That caffeine took a lot out of it.
Too. Yeah. Hey, and so with that, trying to think where I was going to go with that. This whole last 2 minutes will probably be deleted. I don't remember.
Suitcase.
No, I was going to ask a different question. What was I going to ask?
Hollow rock.
I mean, he did ask like how it was growing up.
Yeah, that's
Growing
what-
up Catholic,
yeah,
your
yeah.
mom, the light bulb went off,
Yeah.
electricity was shot,
No, it came back
For-
on. Like for
the,
her.
the light was turned
The
on.
light was turned back on. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about your dad?
So it's actually
So-
kind of
wait,
funny.
wait.
I never
Like,
saw it.
And so with your mom doing that, or believing that, and kind of being that person for you, what role did your dad play in that?
So it's kind of funny how growing up we heard that he was a bit of a wild child / black sheep of the family.
Okay.
And I would say like I didn't see that growing up because he'd gone through it already.
Mhm.
And I think it was because he'd changed his life as well. And so I would say like for my dad, I know that my mom became Christian first.
Mhm.
And I think it was her effect on him that made him choose to become Christian as well
Cool.
down the line.
Awesome. That's good. I'm curious on in the Philippine culture, what trying to like gender roles. How are they pretty traditional to what American gender roles are versus Philippine?
Yeah, well, it's probably the same.
Yeah.
So my dad was a breadwinner. My mom helped raise all of us.
Yeah.
One thing is that she did want to work, but one thing that was important, I think that they both discussed, was he wanted her to actually parent us versus the house help instead of being raised by house help.
Okay, cool. I don't even know where I was going with that question. I was just genuinely curious. Different cultures like that, just fascinating.
Oh yeah, you bet. Yeah, I'll draw you back.
All right. So what's your walk with Christ looking like these days?
I've actually really kind of plugged into my church here in town.
Oh, that's great. Which one?
I go to City Hope.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
We took my daughter to VBS there this week.
Oh, cool
Yeah,
beans.
she liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that look like?
So I've plugged into the small groups.
Mhm.
My wife and I go serve as well on Sundays.
That's great.
And then I find that for us this season, there are a lot of times when we're not able to go in person
Yeah.
because of traveling. But
All right.
it's nice that sometimes we check out the online services, and I
Mhm.
think that's a great thing. That's happened with
Yeah.
technology nowadays. Is you can leverage it for good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, people complain about it because they're like, oh, ever since they started doing that, people aren't coming back to church. But I think it can be used as a very good tool.
I
Yeah.
will say if you aren't going to church because it's easier to watch it, then that's something else you need to
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah,
But
check your heart.
when you can't go to church and you just want to hear the word, like I think it's
Exactly.
great.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good point.
So how does your belief in Christ affect the way that you treat your patients?
I actually so I feel like in the past when you're working in a non-Christian run organization,
Mhm.
like it's kind of harder to I don't know if I'm allowed to rep them
Oh, okay.
in
Oh,
official capacity,
okay.
but what I mean is like where I work at right now, their mission says that they want to run it as a Christian ministry.
Oh, that's great.
And while it might not be, overt, there are ways that you can show them how Christ has had an effect on your life while you're providing your medical care.
I love that.
Sometimes, patients, all they genuinely want, especially with some things that they can't change,
Mhm.
your medical issues.
Yeah,
You can work on it a little bit, but there's some things that are kind of set the way they are.
of course.
And all they really
Yeah.
need is someone to listen, someone
Yeah.
to pray for them, and that means more to them sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're allowed to openly discuss the gospel with them during your sessions and everything like that, right?
And we are, yeah.
That's great. That's awesome.
I will say, there's always you gotta read the room.
Yeah,
You
of
can't, again, come in with a with a sledgehammer and I kind of like you gotta do this, and this.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
if it comes up organically, yeah, they encourage it.
Cool. I love it, man.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Dibs. What gives you joy as a PT?
I think it's the impact that it can have on people's lives when, like I said, they do run with it. Because that lady, she wound up helping me much more. Because there are times that you have cases where you feel like you lost because you weren't able to help
Yeah.
certain people,
Yeah.
and you kind of gotta just focus on the good and
Yeah.
just keep marching on.
Yeah.
And that brings me joy. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't had a day where I don't want to do my line of work because I feel like
That's awesome, Dave.
there are days that the resistance is harder where you're like, I'm sleepy and I wish I
get
could
it.
sleep in.
I get it.
But overall, I love what I do.
Yeah.
Don't really want to change what I'm doing
Mhm.
for the foreseeable future either.
That's great. That's great. My wife just started doing home health,
Oh, sweet.
and she really enjoys it. She's
Mm-hmm.
been doing like med surge, like night shifts and stuff like that. But she
Mhm.
made a transition and was doing home health,
Mhm.
and she loves the flexibility of it. And I think the biggest thing she's complained about is she's going to these people's homes and they're like 95 degrees in their house, and she's just like sweating like
And you
crazy.
can't, it's her home. So you
It's
got to
her
just like,
home, yeah. Well, she's 6 months pregnant, so that doesn't help.
Oh,
yeah,
I gotcha.
So she's like, I had to walk out because I got to pass out. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. So what kind of fitness are you into these days?
So actually last week, so my wife and I haven't really religiously worked out since May because people were getting married and
Yeah,
travel and all that.
We have friends who left and married.
I'm
and
using them as my
changed
excuse.
routines. Yeah, throw them under the bus.
No, but it was
In the
nice
bus.
because I feel like since, most of my previous workout buddies had kind of moved on from that gym, I realized I wasn't making it in time. So I was like,
Yeah.
you got to start here at home. And it
Right.
was kind of nice again to pick back up last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's got a special room.
Oh, you got a home gym?
No, not
Didn't
the,
you have like
not the full blown
a
gym.
Peloton or
We do have.
he at least had some.
We've got
dumbbells.
we've got a bike and we've got free weights.
Mhm.
So
Sweet.
just kind of doing what you can in your space. Because
You
I
ain't
think
done
the
it a
thing
whole
is,
lot.
yeah, I think, and for me, it was choosing to do what I can, and just kind of keeping up with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, for me it's a big mood regulator.
Mhm.
I always feel better after a workout, and
Absolutely.
I feel like
Yeah.
for me, that's something that I realized. I've been under quite a bit of stress just with keeping up with stuff and life, and I find that after we'd gotten back to it, hopping back on the wagon, so to speak, like you really do feel like there's a big difference. It just helps with just when you're kind of tired, you don't have the energy to be huffy or frustrated.
Yeah, I get it. It's true. It's and there's nothing better to help get through those early mornings. Are you an early morning workout guy? Or do you do it in the evenings?
The last week, that's what we were doing, because the thing is, like, by the time I was getting home, it became easier to use, oh, I'm tired, or it was a long day as an excuse. So we're trying to do it around 6 in the morning.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Before you do anything else, just get it
Just
going.
Gina
Spoken like a morning,
Yeah. Cool.
spoken like a morning person.
Oh, yeah.
I will say, my coach said morning is the best. I was like, yeah, if I was there. If I'm in bed sleeping, that's not the best.
That's true. That's very true. Do you follow any sort of programming, or does anybody build you programs, or you just kind of go on and do your own thing?
There are programs that I have online.
Okay.
And I think that's a neat thing is, a lot of people will help kickstart you with free
Absolutely.
programs, but
Yeah.
when you
Like
hit the wall,
The Progressive Overload podcast.
Yeah.
Build you programs.
That it does.
AKA me.
I haven't checked it out yet, or
Sure.
haven't. Just need to look at your work.
I'll build you the best program. I'll turn you into a better looking walker.
I kind of wanted to change my physique, so I'll.
Dude, I would love to coach you seriously. If you're into it, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'll tag team on you.
That would be sick.
I will say actually, like for me, the other thing that I'm wanting to hone in on this year is nutrition, because I feel like
Absolutely.
that's a thing that's kind of hard to keep up with if you're not meal prepping, and life kind of it's kind of hard to eat, keeping a healthy diet going.
Especially when you're on the road traveling as a therapist.
Yeah, I made lunches last week. That hasn't happened this week.
1 week I will have every single meal planned. I'll have breakfast ready for me, throw some egg muffins in the microwave, eat them on the way to work, bring my lunch with me. And the other week I eat out every single meal. It's just there's no in between.
I have a bad habit of just going to the store that will last me for 3 days, because I'm like, I don't know what I want to eat for the rest of the week.
I
So
get
it's just
that.
3 days at a
I can
time,
do
and
that.
then I kind of get my walking around. It's just like people time before I hit the bed.
I don't hate
So
that.
go
I don't hate that at
like
all. Food stays fresh.
11, yeah.
Yeah, you're not throwing away 2-week-old vegetables as much.
Yeah, I have
maybe.
a bad habit of that. I'm
I've
like,
actually switched to frozen vegetables
Yeah.
just because that was the thing. It's like
That's
I
true.
wasn't getting around to cooking them
Mhm.
soon enough after I'd bought them, and I
Yeah.
think that's one of those things I've had to change what I can keep so it's not perishable.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's smart. That's smart. Whenever I was gonna ask and I forgot, it's probably kind of calling back to the first of the episode. When you said that you got to 240 pounds, and then how much weight did you lose from there to your kind of lightest?
I think the lightest I've been is like 190.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. 50 pounds. That's great.
Yeah, trying to get back under.
yeah.
I get it. So what was the main success there? What kind of helped?
It is nutrition. So like
Yeah,
the energy consumption like never really switched, because like even with the workouts I know like I can't beat it, but I would say like
That's
for
true.
me kind of honing back on just eating everything. I like eating, I like cooking,
Yeah.
and
He's a
that's
really
thing.
good cook, by the way.
Oh, well,
Oh,
thank you.
really?
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
the heart ones and what's good for you are diametrically opposed. And I've actually kind of looked into, again, sometimes you just have to make switches
Yeah.
and it works out good.
Yeah, I'm sure there's substitutions you can make that will be just as good. I love what you said, because trying to out-exercise bad nutrition is the exact same as trying to outwork a sin. It's
Repeat that.
so trying to outwork your nutrition, out-exercise bad nutrition is just like trying to outserve a bad sin.
Dang, I have to chew on that. I mean, that is good.
Chew on it, man.
I kind of heard
Let
it,
me
but
throw
where,
that up.
most of the time people get trapped in that cycle of, this is my sin, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And it preoccupies your mind until you're your resolve wavers,
Uh-huh.
and you got to fill it with what's good,
100%.
and that's what keeps you busy and engaged.
100%. Yeah. Anyway, if all you focus on is what you can't do, you miss out on so much. It's things that you can do. Yeah, absolutely.
I like that parallelism. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting he spoke that. I was like, oh yes, that's true.
So for those of you listening, that is everything that the Progressive Overload podcast is about. We take things that are true and present themselves as problems and solutions in health and fitness, and we relate them to problems and solutions in our walk with Christ. That is the whole basis and premise of our podcast.
Because that's reality.
Yeah, absolutely. There are just so many parallels between fitness and Christianity. It's amazing, and so that's why I started the whole podcast to begin with. So I guess if as we close up, is it if there's one thing that you can get whoever's in your brain listening, and whoever you think of who's listening to this podcast, what's one thing you'd like to leave them with?
Because Lige will be listening.
I will say, in all aspects, we gotta be willing to show ourselves the grace that Christ showed us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most transformative thing, is be willing to make those mistakes and just try to do better as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a personal story behind that?
I would say yes. So for me, I talked about how fitness was like a great mood regulator. I would say, especially like when I was a teenager, over a decade ago. We're 32.
Because he's 32, we're babies in this job.
We are.
I know, and so like
we are actually birthday bros.
Same exact birthday.
Wow, cool.
Sorry.
But no, I would say for me there was a lot of time where I was trying to out-exercise sin, and that's the thing that you realize is unless you're filling your life with what's good, it makes it that much harder to say no.
Yeah.
And I would say for me, exercise did wind up being a big mood regulator that helped me, so that if you're not having a pity party for yourself, it kind of helps you do more things to help yourself instead of that vicious cycle where you're feeling bad about the things that you could have done, should have done. And I would say like it was something that I heard in service where the pastor was saying that most of the time, people, if they could, they would. They've done it in the past, and he said, the things that are good, you'll do them again in the future if you're willing to allow God into your life so that you can do it again. Because if you do it on your own strength, it's that much harder.
Right. Absolutely. That's good stuff, man. Awesome.
I'm glad you shared that. It's just rich.
It wasn't mine. It's not pastor's.
You can take the credit. All right. Anything else, guys?
I had a question.
I gotta listen to this podcast.
yeah, you should check. I'm on a few.
Yeah.
What's it like being married to an OT?
It's expanding stuff that I didn't think were like sensory issues for me. I was like, this thing's bothering me, and now it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. I forgot you told me your wife was an occupational
Yeah,
therapist.
it's like the stuff that it's pretty easy for it to go over our heads. Like I don't like being upside down, and she said it's because you don't like that system, and I prefer like
lymphatic stuff.
Gina's just right on Gina.
Yeah. So y'all are just like a power couple of therapy.
I don't know if we're a power couple.
Your kid's gonna
we're
be
some kind of couple.
So you're gonna be your physical therapist, your wife's occupational therapist, your kids. I don't know if y'all have kids. Do y'all have kids?
Not yet. No.
When you have kids, they're gonna be like a mental health therapist, and you'll just have the whole spectrum covered, and you're just good to go.
Her sister's taking up speech, so we're fixing to have
you
a
got
whole
speech.
therapy department.
You just got everything.
Everyone in the neighborhood will just come to y'all's house, and there's a line outside.
I don't know if I'd be cool with that, but yeah, that's good.
That's good.
She's a blessing.
That's good, dude. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. If you came here to hear his story, and if you're a personal friend of his, like I said, our podcast is all about fitness and faith. We relate our fitness journeys to our faith journey, and it helps us grow in both of them. And so stick around and listen to all of our other podcasts. I think this is like 77, 78, 79, somewhere around there. And so go check them out. Walker's in a bunch of them. We have a bunch of different people that I just get to hear from all the time.
I have one last thought.
Okay.
I'm staring at a drink that Joe is drinking, and at the bottom it says,
people.
"Unleash the Ultra Beast."
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody go unleash the Ultra Beast in you. Now you just told everybody I'm drinking a Monster. They're not supposed to do that.
No, who would know that you're drinking a Monster?
People that drink Monsters know what that is.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the kind I drink, but I'm not sure.
All right. Well, we love all of you, and we thank you for tuning in. Listen to us next week. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/progressiveoverloadpod. In there, you can receive one-on-one coaching from me, or you can receive exercise programming. A bunch of different levels there that you can support us through that. We love you, and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Progressive Overload podcast. We're honored to be a small part of your day. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or are interested in sponsoring our efforts, please feel free to reach out via email. Find us at progressiveoverloadpod@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our podcast so you'll be notified when our next episode drops.
And as always, you can help us reach the masses by sharing our podcast with your friends and family. And then check us out on Facebook and Instagram to follow our own personal journeys and get an inside look on our day-to-day lives. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.